Welcome to the scale models of the universe. We have 12 scale models we're going to play around with. This is the first video of those 12. And think of this like a ladder of scale models that go up by powers of 1,000. So the first scale model we have is 1 to 1,000. So in order to show something real, we reduce it 1,000 times. And we make a little model of it, or we can make a map of it. Let me show you an example. So here we have an image that's reduced exactly 1,000 times. So we're looking at 1 square kilometer. And if you were into cartography, you could then measure distances using whatever units you like, and then you would multiply it by 1,000 to get the real distance. And we're standing right here. Here's the lighthouse. And then here is the beach where we're going to walk on and continue our discussion. So for convenience, we'll give names to these scale models. We can use the metric prefix system, kilo, mega, giga. We know them from kilobytes or kilograms. So in this case, 1 to 1,000 kilo is kind of a nice handle that we can use. Now, the miniature world or map we looked at, 1 to 1,000, imagine if that extended indefinitely. And we can just keep walking through this little miniature world and explore it. What would that look like? So, for example, I'm now 200 meters away from the lighthouse where we looked at the map. That would be equivalent to 200 kilometers. And over here, I have a fairly large boulder. It's about 4 meters tall. And that is a good, model of some of these very tall mountains, these tall volcanoes that are in the area. So the distance and the height of that boulder is representative of how the scale model would look like. Eventually, we'll deal with scale models that extend towards the solar system and then the stars and the Milky Way and that kind of thing. But right now, we're just dealing with 1 to 1,000. And the Earth is still fairly large. It's 13 kilometers across. It's 40 kilometers in circumference. So if I wanted to walk around the Earth, this scale model of the Earth, it would be like walking a marathon. If I were in a real scale model of the Earth at 1 to 1,000, after a few hundred meters, I would notice something very interesting. I would notice that all these little boulders here would start disappearing under the horizon. And that's what the early navigators realized. As they hugged the shoreline, they would look out for the mountaintops, and that was their way of navigation. As long as you could see land, you were safe. But as you ventured into the open sea, what happened? Well, these mountaintops started disappearing under the horizon until you could just barely see the peaks. And so this happens just over a few hundred kilometers, mountains start disappearing. And this is how the ancients realized that we live on a round planet. The ancient astronomers and the ancient navigators also realized that as they traveled around the globe, things would change. Certainly, their measurement of time, in which they used the sun and the shadows to measure time, that would behave a little differently if they went further up north or if they went south. So they would draw the arc of the sun on the ground, and they noticed that the further south you go, the shape and the angle would change. That was another confirmation of a round Earth. And not only the sun, but the stars, the night sky, it also changed. And when they traveled south, they would see new stars and new constellations appear up over the horizon. And the North Star would slowly go lower and lower towards the horizon. And they realized as well that they were approaching the equator. And south of the equator, there was a whole other hemisphere just waiting for them to explore. So to look at the Earth from a higher perspective, we need to go to the next scale model, which is the mega scale model, which is 1 to a million. But before we jump there, I just want to show you the inspiration behind this video series. And it comes from the book Powers of 10. And in this book, they start at the true scale, and every page has a number telling you what the distance is of the image that you're looking at. And in this case, they're going into the micro world. If you go in one direction, you go smaller and smaller. But if you go in the other direction, you're zooming out. And every time you zoom out, you're jumping in powers of 10. So hence the title of the film and the book. And in this video series, I wanted to create scale models that kind of follow the book. Jumping in powers of 10 would have resulted in too many scale models. And powers of 1,000, which we're doing, actually turned out to be very interesting as well. And so that's why we have relatively few scale models. We have 12. Let's go now to the mega scale model, 1 to a million. We'll see you there.